Welcome to the CEO of Destiny podcast, where you will find the tools to fulfill the purpose of your generation and wildly succeed in the marketplace. And now your host, Andre J. Benjamin.
Greetings. Welcome to the CEO of Destiny show. My name is Andre J. Benjamin, your host, and I'm excited today to have our great guest who is going to open up Mr. Rob Kenney about his whole journey. He has a channel that has taken off. He has a new book out that is really, I feel, very timely in a time when people are somewhat lacking encouragement and direction. And we had a heck of a 2020. I think the globe is still trying to figure out who we are as a planet. So it was kind of good to have some sensibility in the midst of that. And I want to welcome you onto our show. And first thing I want to do before I formally welcome you, as I'm welcoming you, is I want to give honor where honor is due, because I really think that you have put together a resource that is very valuable and timely, because a lot of people were feeling very despondent. I work with a lot of business owners and a lot of young adults, and I see their uncertainty about the future. So when people have some calm and some clarity, it is very encouraging for someone to take their time and to put almost like a labor of love out to say, hey, you know what? I may not know everything, but whatever I do know, I'm trying to give it away. So thank you for doing that. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. And I think you got the gist of it. I'm not pretending to be anything more than I am. I'm not an expert in anything, not a jack of all trades, master of none. But I've learned some things over the year raising two adult kids. And so I just wanted to be able to pass along some of the things that I've learned.
Nice. What would you say is your origin story or your background? Can you tell those who are viewing and listening to this show, what is your background?
Yeah, so I'm, as far as my profession, I'm actually in sales. I've been doing that for almost 30 years at the same company. Well, I shouldn't say the same company, because I was with one company for 17 years. They sold, and then I've been with them, and I was with them for 12 years, and then they sold. So, I haven't moved. My company's moved, but I think that's important to not necessarily hop around. I think that was always something that I tried to do, to not always think that the grass is greener. So that's my profession. My background, I think part of the reason my story was hitting home with people was my dad left when I was 14. And so I went to live with my brother, who was 9 years older than me at the time. He was 23 and he was newly married. And so, a lot of this stuff that I'm teaching is stuff that pretty basic, but stuff that if you don't have somebody to show you, you kind of just flounder for a while until you figure it out. And so I thought I'd try to give people a leg up and encourage people to help kind of stand on my shoulders or stand on other people's shoulders. I hate to act like I'm the hero in it. I want people to be the hero in the story so that they can be encouraged to make the best of their lives.
It's a very enriching tool belt. It's the way you give it away. I want to ask you a question around just if you have assessed something about yourself. What would you personally say you would believe that your gift is? What would you believe that you're gifted at, Rob?
It's funny that you say that. As far as a gift, I guess we can look at it as is it a gift, or is it I've always tried to keep things as simple as I possibly can, so that I can get my own head around it. And there's times where I can't break things down so simple, and so I get frustrated because I'm like, I just can't get my head around it. So I think that I think God has given me a gift of trying to simplify things that maybe seem intimidating to people, but it's basically because that's how I have to get my own head around it before I can then explain it to others.
Seems very in the realm of compassion. It's just interesting because taking the ability to show people and to have patience. I'm a parent. We have 3 children, 11, 8, and 4, and
Nice.
The learning curve is very steep. Because the world's ever changing, and so are they. So they all bring their distinct personalities. But with that being said, there's a temperament to work with people and to really, give people jewels for life. Can you tell me what inspired the journey and the whole origin of Dad, How Do I?
Yeah, I think it was, I hate to use the term perfect storm, just because this is something I thought of a few years ago. And then with the pandemic, my daughter has been a big part of this too. So I have to give credit where credit's due. She's been on me to, Dad, you need to do this, you need to do it. And I'm like, I get busy like everybody else and put things off. And I'm like, you just don't have the time. But I ran out of excuses because of the pandemic, because we were all quarantines, so I was at home and I had time on my hands. So I was like, okay, what's it going to cost me to do a Thai video, a couple minutes, and then just figure out how to upload it to YouTube. And then I did how to shave. And I didn't think, I thought I was going to help 30 or 40 people. I just wanted to kind of come up with an idea that where you could come to learn all things dad, so to speak. Yeah. And so I had no idea that this was going to resonate on the level that it has. But I think it was the pandemic, like you said, a sense of calm of, I've lived a while, I'm 57, and seen ups and downs. The pandemic was pretty unique in how it all hit us. And so it's unique to me as well, but I have been through some highs and lows in my life and tried to temper them with understanding that things are temporary. You can have a great high in your life, and then next thing now you got going through a low, and if you just wait a little while, then it's a high again. And so I've tried to remain calm through all that, although it isn't easy. Like you're going through that as a parent yourself. You can have a bad day at work and come home and be frustrated or sit in traffic or what have you, and your kids, then you're trying to provide, doing the best you can, and then your kids don't understand what all they can't possibly grasp all that you're juggling to try to then remain calm when you go out to try to fix something. So I'm like anybody else. I've lost my patience at times, but I have, we did always try to include our kids in stuff. It's easier to go build a fence by myself. I can go out there and figure it out. I don't have to explain it to them, but I wanted to try to include our kids whenever I could, because, that's empowering. Plus that bonding time is valuable.
Definitely. What did you see that, or what do you think your daughter saw in you? And what do you think she also saw that was lacking? That, basically what gap did she see that she was like, man, I want my dad to take a shot at this, especially when you talk about the scalability of technology and using it to hit the globe. So it's, like you said, hey, now this time is freed up because I have no excuse. And, it's not like you had to go over to a radio station or a TV station. And, you had the ability because of technology to really have a wide impact. So what do you think she saw in you? And what do you think she saw was missing as a gap?
Well, so I still remember her actually saying, I'm watching celebrities. Who was it? I can't remember who the celebrity was, but put together a bike. She said, I just got done after like a half hour watching this celebrity put together a bike. She said, I really think people would want to hear from just a normal dad. And you know how to do a lot of things, Dad. So what do you think? And so, yeah, so she encouraged me to do it. I always said that she's kind of got a spidey sense of what the world needs. She really, I think, speaking of gifts, I think she's been gifted that way. When she was growing up, she used to, seek out the kids at recess that had no friends. She was she was into sports and stuff, so she could have hung out with the jocks, so to speak, and she didn't. She would bring home friends, and I was like, this one's anyway, this one's a little different, Christine, but she was just, had compassion on people, really, and she's a BCBA now, where she works with kids that, have learning disabilities. She's a board certified behavior analyst. That's what a BCBA is. Yeah, so I'm very thankful for her, because she has been a big part of encouraging me to do this and helping me to navigate, because I didn't know what I was doing. I was just trying to help a handful of people. You can even tell on my shaving video in the background, you can see my prescription bottle. And my daughter said, Dad, you might want to get that out there. I said, who's going to see this? 30 or 40 people, I can live with that. And so now that one's one of my more viewed videos.
It's such a basic life skill, but it's so needed, and people are curious. It's just amazing the things that people will watch now, and it's actually inspiring in regards to things that are helpful. So whom were you targeting, and why was this important to you to kind of step out of your comfort zone? Because I mean, obviously you said you have a background in sales, and I know, I've read your book, so I know about your background, but for our viewers and listeners, what was it that made this important to you, and whom were you targeting? And, kind of what was your goal and ultimate hope or dream for this project?
Yeah, I'm trying to help anybody and everybody. That was kind of the goal. Early on, people said, "Oh, that's nice. He's helping young men." Well, I am trying to help young men, but there's, because certain videos just kind of naturally are for men, for young men that maybe don't have a dad that show them how to tie a tie. That's gonna, some girls might need to wear a tie, but for the most part, that's going to be a guy thing. But we always wanted to empower our own kids to learn how to, change a tire. You can't rely on, what if you're out somewhere and you don't know how to change a tire? You can't say, "Oh, hope my boyfriend gets here," or "hope my husband gets here in a couple hours," and you're in a scary place. You need to learn how to do anything. And so, and I have, I call my subscribers my kids, as I'm sure you know, and I have 80-year-old kids watching me. And it's interesting because it's resonated on a whole nother level that I never imagined. People are crying watching me tie a tie, just because the dad moment that maybe they never had, or maybe their dad has passed or what have you, and they miss that. I've had people tell me they put my shaving video on. A woman put a shaving video on. It just reminds her of her dad, and she has it on repeat and just watches it over and over for the dad moment. So that's stuff I had never imagined. I thought I was just trying to put out some how-tos to be useful. I didn't realize that it would resonate on the level that it is.
It's interesting the amount of kind of societal ailment around absence of fathers and people with a lot of things that is deep-seated. I remember I did some work with young people, and I was running a mentoring group, and I had them wear ties all the time on specific days. And so, of course, a lot of them came to me and said, all I can do is the clip on. And then I was like, well, no, I bought you guys some. And then we walked through, putting them on and whatnot. And it kind of was a big, and then they, as much as they grumbled and complained about it, they started to look forward to it. And then some days I saw them dressing up on the off day, and I'm looking at them and say, hey, we're only supposed to do this 2 days a week. And they're just like, I know, but it just feels good. I like the way I feel. And then there was another instance where a young man who was older than me, and he had me doing a project with him that was a video shoot. And we were in the restroom, and he saw me tying mine, and he asked me, would I mind showing him how? And he was like, oh, my dad never showed me this. And so it was interesting. Like you said, you don't realize how much, and then even his dad had never shown him it. So even when my dad was showing me how, I kind of learned it fast. And then he started asking me to show him how to do it. And he was saying that how it was something that never had, he had wanted to know. And I think a lot of young people in general have a curiosity about the processes of life. So they want to see the phases. They don't know what it's like. What do you look like? How do you wear your beard if you have a lot of facial hair? Do you wear it? Do you shave it off? If just that process of aging with life. What does a 60-year-old look like? How's a 50-year-old carry themselves? How's a 70-year-old? So we're all, I think, kind of looking for these cues. And I think that kind of is drawing some attention to the way that you lay it out on your videos. The way you lay it out is calm and not judgmental, and not like, oh, you idiots should know this by now, so let me take you to school. And so it connects on a whole different way. Can you take us back to some of your initial responses that you were getting, and how were you feeling as a result of the feedback that was coming in?
Yeah, honestly, it terrified me. I've shared that. I didn't do this to become famous or to make money or switch careers or any of the above. I'm 57. My wife and I have planned well. We're closing in on retirement. I was just trying to help a few people. So it terrified me, because even though I'm in sales, I'm a bit of an introvert. I connect well, I think, with 3 or 4 people in a group. But if you want me to stand up in front of 40 people, I'm a bit of a wreck, and I share that in my book. I'm trying to overcome that because I don't think the Lord would want me to continue to bring that into the future. So I've tried to face that fear, and I've gotten some tools.
Can you speak a little, elaborate on that in regards to being an introvert? I'm more of an introvert, but I do a lot of things that are in the forefront in regards to, presentations and trainings and things of that nature. So I can activate it, but I do treasure and value the alone time. And even though 2020 was overkill, because it was almost like the rest of the world was forced to act like introverts, so it just made it miserable for people who were introverts,
Yeah.
But can you talk about how you were able to play to your strengths utilizing this technology? Because an introvert might say, I don't want to get in front of a camera, but I feel something burning inside of me that can be helpful, just as you've been helpful to people.
Yeah, it's been, because it's myself and I can edit the video, the lives are a little more scary because you have a whole bunch of people looking at you and it's live, but still it's through a camera. And so I think it's that, I've been on the Today Show, I've been on the Tamron Hall Show, I've been talked with Ryan Seacrest, talked to Kevin Hart. All this stuff is remote though. I think if I was on stage at some of these places, that might be a little bit different story. I think now I could probably handle it because I've been kind of, slowly been able to get my head around it and kind of walk into it virtually. I think now it wouldn't be such a big deal, but my first request to be on TV, I was a wreck. I did not sleep the night before. I woke up exhausted and I'm like, I just hope this goes well. And that was virtually. So then as they started coming in more and more, I kind of got my feet underneath me and felt like, okay, I can do this. It's not as big a deal and I'm overthinking it. Just got to kind of be myself and go with it. Yeah, so it's been okay. I'm not going to sit here and say that it's amazing, because there's times where I question myself, I get in my own head and start overthinking. What am I doing? Is this really me? It's an out of body experience at times.
Can you speak to the importance of parental encouragement and how vital of a role that plays in the development of just a kind of a well-adjusted human? Why is that important? And what are you seeing even based upon the feedback you're getting from people?
Yeah, I think, my kids, even though my daughter's 29, my son's 26, we still say, I love you. Every time we're on the phone, I say, I love you. I don't want that, time to go by where we don't say that. And my son grew up with that. We started from day one that, you hang up the phone. And even when he was going through his teenage years where I'd call him, he was not ashamed to say, I love you, Dad, to say that back. Because I think that that's important to kind of set that as you go along. And then telling your kids you're proud of them. I think that's so important. Unfortunately, I get that feedback on my channel of people saying, because I said that on my channel, as I'm sure you know, and people said, I've never heard that once from my parents that they're proud of me. Yeah, that's sad. You talk about encouragement. When I used to teach Sunday school, I used to write up the word, and I talked about this on my channel before, but I used to put the word courage on the board. And courage, if you think about the word courage, what does it make you feel? It feels like, oh man, I can, face the day and go out and conquer the world. And you add the prefix "en" or "dis" in the front of it. You can encourage somebody and empower them, give them that courage that you feel so good about, or you can take that courage away from them. I think that is a good word picture for understanding the power of encouragement.
So many lack hearing those positive words. And I think even in a drive-by culture, I heard somebody say to me that if you just give directional and correctional conversation with your kids, you're not really talking to them, you're talking, at them. And it made me really think about, because sometimes, especially with our oldest, we put a lot of responsibility because we're just trying to encourage them that you're steering the way for the others. But, I found, and I think it may have been in the, honestly, kind of, I was convicted as I'm going into this interview. It's like, oh my gosh, am I So I went in last night and spent some time with our oldest and just told him, I said, you know what, I'm proud of you. I'm not proud of you because of anything you do. I'm proud of you just because you're my son. And I could tell he really looked at me, and he didn't want to be mushy, but I could tell he looked at me like, man, that meant something to me, and it just softened up the moment. So I think you're onto something in regards to even hearing those words. I'm proud of you. So many people are hearing so much negative feedback right now. And the world is kind of cluttered with that. So I think even putting that out in the atmosphere and in the airwaves, something that would spark people to say, wait a minute, why can't I tell that to someone else? Is it just based upon performance, or can I find something that's praiseworthy and
Yeah.
something that's a life point that I can, spark up someone? Can you talk a little bit about who encouraged you? Talk about the Ricks and the Karens and and who they were and what they did in your life that was significant, as well as your sister and your other siblings. I mean, your siblings actually came together like a super squad, but I don't want to give it away.
Yeah, they did. I've got a great group of siblings that we rallied around each other, and I think that speaks to the fact that my parents did start well, and I try to hopefully paint everybody in the best possible light in my book. Not trying to throw anybody under the bus, and trying to look at it from an adult's perspective of how did this kind of go south? What happened? And I really think my book does a good job of doing that. And I relied on my older siblings to say, how did you see this kind of happening too? Because I was younger, my memories aren't as great as them as being adults kind of looking at it. And I've got a lot of inspiration from Rick. Rick and I talk all the time still. And I've always tried to look for, I think it's important to look at other people and that's a good quality trait. So that's why I try to share that in my book is if you can look at some quality traits in somebody, they may not have other good quality traits. My siblings have a lot of good quality traits, but you can pick even one person that might be bad in certain areas, but you can pick that one and go, I want to incorporate that in my own life. I really like how they handle that, and do the best you can to then incorporate it into your own life. But yeah, Rick and Karen have been a huge influence because they stepped up. We lived in he's 23, my brother was 23 and she was 24 when I was 14, and they were newlyweds and we lived in tight quarters, an 8x35 trailer. So they, that's pretty inspiring, that the fact that they stepped up and did what needed to be done, even though it wasn't easy, and they've never held that over my head. They've never said, we did this for you, so you need to do this. They just did it because they felt like it was the right thing to do. So I think that's important. A lot of times we help people and then we have an ulterior motive for why we're helping them. We want something out of them, and it's so nice to have people do something just to do something. So
when you, I've worked a lot with people who have aged out of foster care, and I know about the challenges that come with family situations that break up, especially with the nuclear family. Can you talk about that importance of having that stability of a sibling that's, stuck up for you and that came to you, and kind of even how that plays into the work that you're doing now with this project?
Yeah, well, thank you for doing that. Actually, Andre, that's big time that you're working with those foster kids. There was a threat from my dad that I could go live in foster care if the older siblings didn't take us in, and thankfully my brother took me in. But so I've learned a little bit. I still don't know a ton about it, but I'm learning more and more. And that, ultimately, I would like to, if we can, help those young people that are aging out. I didn't even know what that was. And people were making that comment on my channel and saying, thank you so much, I aged out of foster care. I'm like, what does that even mean? And so I had to do a little research, and it breaks my heart that we're not necessarily equipping people and then they age out and we just send them off into the world without the tools. I'm not, I'm painting with a broad brush, of course, but if even there's a few that are doing that, but it sounds to me like there's a lot more than a few that's what we're doing, and we're expecting them to have success without really giving them the tools for success. So I'm hoping that, we can do something working with the foster care system somehow. And I've had a couple foster care places reach out to me and ask how we can shed a light on on this problem that we have. So hopefully we can do something there. I think it's really, really important. But if you don't have it, what do you do? What do you do? I don't have the answer to that. I honestly don't. I think, since I'm a man of faith, I rely on that myself. That's a big part of my life. And, the Lord is bigger than me. And so I can't solve everybody's problems, but I can go to him. So that's huge, and if you don't have that, and you just feel like you're alone in this world, that's pretty hard. And my heart breaks for people that are feeling that way.
Can you give a little snippet of what your sister Lori did for you and why that was so? She came at a critical time, and what would you want your readers and also your viewers to glean from the work that she did in your life? Because I think about what you listed as you're about to say it. It's it's very huge for development. Yeah. I mean, kids really are rough towards each other in our society. So can you speak to? Yeah,
Lori being an encourager and stepping up with my clothes, you mean? Buying clothes for me? Absolutely. Yeah. She made a sacrifice. She didn't have a whole lot. And again, I think, it speaks to how well my parents started and the roots that we had and the extended family that we had in Kansas, that Mary, her chapter is about keeping us kind of connected to our roots in Kansas, of those quality people there. But Lori, she stepped up when we needed clothes, and we were just trying to get by. There was a time where my dad got custody of us, but he didn't really want us. And so my mom couldn't take care of us. And so we were living at our house. This was the 70s, of course, so it was a different time, but my dad would stock us up with groceries and just leave for a week, and then come back and check on us and leave again, and it was basically the younger siblings just fending for themselves. Lori was out by that time, but she would check back in, and Rick was in the military at that time, so he was away. But Lori, what are you doing for clothes? I don't know, that's stuff that somebody else normally thinks of, I'm not concerned about, and it was a little hard. It was tough because I was middle school, or it was actually junior high when I was there. And that's a tough time anyway. You're kind of unsure of yourself.
Oh, yes. You're going through puberty. It's just,
oh my goodness.
It's just so much is happening.
Yeah. And I was kind of short and chubby at the time. I share that in my book too, so on top of that, I'm like, who am I? What have I got going for me? I don't have a whole lot. I'm wearing the same clothes every day to school, and I remember even wearing the same socks, and not washing them and going to school. My feet stunk. Not proud of it, but yeah. I mean, I just didn't have somebody to help. And so that, Lori's, she has a gift for being an encourager, and she, in her profession too, she works with special needs kids and always sets the bar higher than what we expect out of them. And I've heard that over and over from parents when we visited. So.
Can you give us some practical ways in which we can encourage, as we're wrapping the corner to round up this interview? Can you give the audience some practical ways in which they can encourage? I like the list that you put out.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's so many different ways. And I think if we just stop and get our eyes off ourselves and maybe what's that person, wonder what they're going through, even just how are you doing, and not just settle with the good, maybe probe a little bit. I think if you spend a little bit of time, digging a little deeper with people and ask them how they're really doing, like you were saying, even as a father, making that connection of something a little deeper so that you can talk about things that, are deeper. I never really had that with my own dad, unfortunately. We never got to that point of, even though after I forgave him, it was all a little superficial, we never really got to talk about meaningful stuff. And, it's easy to ask somebody how they're doing and they say fine, and you just move on. If you can just take the time, it doesn't cost you anything. All it costs is a little bit of your time to dig a little deeper.
How has your family adjusted to this newfound life in the spotlight? And, tell us also some of the more funnier responses that you've had from people that kind of tickle you.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm still trying to maintain my sanity and be just, who I normally am. But it's definitely weird how certain people are good with that, and certain people want to assume I think higher of myself than I am, and kind of it's like, it's still me. I take out the garbage. I'm not acting like I'm anybody. So please don't act like I'm acting like I'm somebody,
You see
So
the responses of others with their assumptions change about like, oh, he must think, and you're like, it's still me. It's the same guy.
yeah, I mean, I had a funny story about, went into the office for the first time in a while, and there was this young gal that I worked with, and she was like, oh, it's like, we worked together for a couple of years. I mean, what? It's just me. But you start seeing stuff enough online, you start projecting something or something. I don't even know how to say it. I'm still trying to figure it all out. It's interesting, I'm trying to, because I also have, so it's a little surreal. Like I said, I'm on the Today Show and I'm on these different, talking to pretty famous people, and I have to act, I guess, like I belong. I don't want to get on there and, oh, it's Kevin Hart. I can't believe I'm talking to Kevin Hart. I have to act like I belong, right?
That's right.
And
Like you've
so
been here before.
weird to turn that on and turn it off. It's definitely a little odd.
What does your wife think? What does your wife? It's kind of interesting what you said about your kids being like, yeah, that's dad, and he's being the same. But what does your wife think?
Yeah, it's been an adjustment for all of us trying to figure it out. So I think she's okay with it now, but it's definitely odd, and I am still working and trying to juggle all this stuff too. So I'm still working, and then there's possibilities of TV show, that kind of is hanging out there. Wrote the book. I've got sponsorships reaching out to me, and then interviews too. And so,
What pushed you to write the book, by the way? What pushed you to write Because I just thought it was a great. That's how I discovered you, because I'm always looking for things that are that add value and that I'm curious about. And so when I saw somebody basically one of my favorite people was Mr. Rogers, and I grew up, and I wouldn't tell all my close friends that back in the day, but it was a sense of calm in a chaotic world to kind of sit down and slow down. It's like I'm a 7-year-old that was watching horror films and mafia movies and stuff. And so when I get to watch some Mr. Rogers, it slows down. So I was like, wow, this guy's like a modern day Mr. Rogers. He's kind of, reaching out to a generation that needs some encouragement. So what got you to actually chronicle it and start to scribe it, put it into a book format?
Well, I had a few publishers actually reach out to me and wanted to see if I was interested. And I said, of course. I mean, who doesn't want to write a book? I get to pass along my knowledge, the stuff that I have in written form. I mean, what a great opportunity. So yeah, I'm very grateful, and they've been nothing but great. HarperCollins, William Morrow is actually a division of HarperCollins, and I made a great connection with the guy, and he told me, I said, can I share about my faith? Is that okay? Because I said I got to be true to myself here, and if I act like I'm, the thing to aim for, people are going to be sorely disappointed because I'm aiming much higher than me. I'm just a man. And I've heard that about Mr. Rogers. I always downplay that too. I've been called the modern day Mr. Rogers, but nobody can live up to that. I used to watch Mr. Rogers too. You kind of hit my funny bone there, because with my older siblings, I would be watching Mr. Rogers, and I'm like, oh, this is as a little kid, and then my older brothers would come home like, change this channel. I can't be caught watching Mr. Rogers.
Nobody wants to see you taking a trip to the magical world of make believe.
Exactly, but yeah, so it's been just such a blessing. I'm so grateful that I can pour back into the next generation, and I'm also trying to encourage dads to be there for their kids. Absolutely. And hang in there and don't run after stuff, because if you do, you leave ripple effects behind you that somebody else is cleaning up that mess, whether it's society or whether it's some siblings or whoever stepping in to try to clean up the mess that you left behind. And it's cool to be a dad. Would you agree? It is, our
Wouldn't trade it
society.
for the world. Wouldn't trade it.
Oh my goodness, what a blessing, Homer Simpson and, Al Bundy, they kind of, while they have some funny moments, I think that it's actually kind of been a little hurtful because it kind of, we can just make fun of dad.
The dads are the buffoonish oafs that people don't need.
Yeah, that ain't right. That ain't right.
It's cool to see the encouraging for young people to see it. I'm definitely getting more than one copy. I mean, I've already thought of people I can gift it to, because it's just, if number one, you also like you said, to take complex things and make them simple. That's a gift. So it's just cool to see you going on in this work. What do you see in the long term? Because I know you're talking about things are on the horizon with offers around the show, and I don't know where do you see it could go? It just seems like it's the ball's in your court as far as what your time will afford you and what you think is the priority of how you maximize that time, especially since you said your wife and yourself are rounding the corners of post career life and stepping into something, what your next phase is.
Yeah, I'm trying to hold it with an open hand. I just want to do what the Lord would have me to do. I want to represent him well. That's a big part of what I'm doing. I want to the best of my ability, because I think I have been given a platform for good, to steer people in a good direction. And so as long as I maintain that, and so trying to filter through all the different sponsors and stuff, trying to figure out how that works to see if maybe this is something I could do full time, so I could put more energy into it, because right now I'm spread pretty thin. And trying to make sure I don't go off, off brand, so to speak. I hate to say that because this wasn't planned. There is a certain brand to it, meaning, I'm talking to my kids, and this is something I'd recommend to my kids, but I do have some very good sponsors that are reaching out to me that want to be a part of this, even though they don't necessarily, and they're big name companies. How do I incorporate them so that that they're able to help support me, even though it's not something I'd do a how-to, so I'm trying to navigate that without, I don't want to lose people, I'm doing this, but also if a good name brand wants to be a part of pouring kindness back into the world, I don't know that that's necessarily such a bad thing. So just trying to figure that out. I think with a TV show, that's easy, right? You're on TV, you have a commercial by this sponsor that wants to support what you're doing, and they like the wholesomeness. But on a YouTube channel, how do you navigate that? I don't know.
I think the freedom, as we wrap this up, I think the freedom of you being able to, the one thing I do like about the era we're in is it's kind of removed the gatekeeper. And I like the fact that it really is up to you. As you said, it's like, I could do this or I could do that, but you want to choose wisely. I mean, you even talk about making decisions in here and about, the analysis paralysis type deal and whatnot. But I think it's very encouraging to see you mindfully considering how you maneuver, rather than just, all right, this came along, now I'm doing this and doing that. And I know it's all so quick. This has all happened in a short window, that things really surged during the time when the world shut down. So it is really for such a time as this. What would you say the whole purpose of this podcast and this show is, in particular, to bring encouragement to people, to help them bring in a return on the investment that's been made into them through their creator? And it really is to spark up almost a sense of ownership or, stewardship and responsibility. So that's everything from finance to investing to life to parenting to whatnot. And that's why I brought you on here. And I want to know for yourself, you spoke a little bit about, your faith and what that means to you, but can you break down in this final closeout what legacy means to you, and kind of, why you ultimately, want to do this? Because you put together something that can be captured for eons. Since you put it in digital and you put it in written, you have generations that can come across it in your bloodline and outside of your bloodline. So speak to that.
Well, thank you. That's very kind. Yeah, I am grateful that I've been given this opportunity to leave a healthy legacy, a lot of times we run after things and think, oh, that'll satisfy me. But sometimes we just need, some wholesomeness, some just being good to each other, that sort of thing. I hope my legacy is that, I am called to love God and love people. I think that that's what God would want me to do. It's as simple as that. There's a song out, actually, a Christian song that says that, love, break it down for you, love God, love people. If that's my legacy, because I understand that this is temporary, I'm not going to be here forever. I will at one time pass on. I think early on in my life, I understood that once I became a Christian. I think I understood that, an eternal perspective is so important because, we're all heading there, whether you want to talk about it or not, you won't be here forever. You're eventually going to pass. And so, I think that if I can be known as somebody that just wanted to help people to the best of my ability and ultimately point them to the Lord, that's, I don't think I could ask for a better legacy than that.
Well, thank you today for your time, for your kindness and generosity, and living life with an open hand, and just encouraging the upcoming generations to almost not take themselves too seriously, but to take themselves serious enough to be responsible with the life that they have. It's very, it's what I call, that's a part of what I believe is the emerging life culture, a culture that celebrates life and that encourages people to maximize and to really be considerate and to mature in ways that are valuable. So thank you for doing this work. We hope for you to reach the highest heights and for you to have the biggest impact because of the generosity and the mindfulness in which you're expressing with your audience. Thank you for being on the show. Do you have any places where people can find you and look out, and what do we have some more? I mean, and I know it's, like I said, it's all going so fast. Do you have things coming down the turnpike, other things that you want to talk? This is your chance to promote.
Yeah, I always feel a little bit weird about it, but I do feel good about the book. I think the book I poured a lot of time and rewrote it to make sure that I felt good about it. Thankfully, my brother Rick helped me with that too. But I think that it is a valuable resource. I see it as a graduation gift or as a going off to college gift, because there's some inspiring words in the first part with my siblings. And then there's also how to budget, how to pay your bills, how to, ultimately get to the point where you can start investing. What does that look like? So I think there's enough there that hopefully it would hang on somebody's shelf and people wouldn't, donate it to Value Village after they're done, that they'd actually hang on to it. Because I think there is some resources there that you would want to be able to, look back to. So yeah, I have my YouTube channel, Dad, How Do I? You can just go to YouTube and Dad, How Do I? And Instagram, Dad, How Do I? I'm on Facebook too, Dad, How Do I? My daughter takes care of both of those for me. And then I actually do have a website that we set up where we sell a few shirts or what have you. We don't push that a whole lot, but it's dadhowdoiofficial.com. And when you go there, there's a pop-up that comes up so you can actually order the book, because the book's available on Amazon, Target, Barnes and Noble. Trying to think, Queen Anne Bookstore is my local bookstore that I did a bunch of signed copies for them.
Absolutely. The book is called Dad, How Do I? This is the man, the legend, the person who's pouring into the generations. We thank you for having you on the show today. We want people to find you where they can. Take action, go grab the book, grab a couple copies, give it, graduation just passed, but you have people going their way to new phases of life. And I think it's a great tool and a resource. So thank you for being on the show.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, Andre. Appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Do us a favor. If this was useful in any way for you, please go to iTunes and leave us a review. Reviews will allow others to easily discover the podcast. If you'd like more information and to receive a free download, rediscover your destiny, go to ceofdestiny.com. Thanks again, and tune in next time.